Mr. Chairman, we're ready when you are.
Okay, ready to go. With that, I will call to order the regular meeting of the and special meeting of the board of directors of the West Basin Water District. Management with determination of the water.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Director Harold Williams.
Here.
Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Don Deere. Director Scott Houghton.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay, do we have any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there are any members of the public that would like to make public comment, please indicate so now by raising your virtual hand. Mr. Chairman, I do not see any requests.
Any presentation?
Staff has no presentations today.
Then we will move to the action calendar. First item up on the action calendar is the award of the construction contract for 2022-2024 and 6 replace and repair project. Mr. General Manager, would you introduce that item, please?
Happy to do so, Mr. Chairman. This item is going to be presented by Orlando Rodriguez, our senior engineer, and it begins on packet page 4.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee. As EJ mentioned, I will be recommending award of a construction contract to Tharsos for the Title 22 filters 3, 4, and 6 R&R project. So as you may recall, in August 2023 at the E&L committee meeting, staff presented 3 alternatives, 1, 2, and 3, for the project to move forward. At that meeting, the committee recommended a hybrid alternative that combined elements of alternatives 2 and 3. Those were to perform an R&R on 3 filters now, also perform crack repairs on the exterior side of the north walls of filters 7 and 8, and then also moving forward to basically program ongoing R&R on the remaining filters, which were 11 total that we need to perform work on. At the August 28, 2023 board meeting, the board approved to proceed with the committee's recommendation. During that time, staff worked with the design consultant Carollo Engineers to essentially revise the drawings and specifications to reflect the recommended alternative. And in November of 2023, the construction bid package was completed, and therefore we proceeded with solicitation. The bid solicitation for construction services was issued via West Basin's online e-procurement system on December 6th of 2023. A pre-bid meeting was held on December 14th, 2023 via teleconference, followed by an on-site job walk that same day. 6 company representatives attended the mandatory pre-bid meeting, and 3 company representatives attended the on-site job walk at the ECL facility. The 3 bids were received and publicly opened on January 31st of this year, 2024, here at the DLD building. And you can see the results of the bid opening on page 6 of the agenda packet in table A. The bid submitted by Tharsos Inc. In the amount of $1,742,240 was found to be the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. The engineer's cost estimate for this hybrid alternative is just north of $1.7 million, so pretty close to the lowest bid we received from Tharsos. Tharsos is located in La Mesa, California, which is in San Diego County, near the city of San Diego. And they have performed projects for several agencies in Southern California, including cities as well. Staff reached out to the contractor's references included in the bid package, and all of them seem to be in good standing, have worked, had good recommendations for Tharsos Inc., including actually West Basin. As early as 2013, they've done a couple projects for us, not only at our ECL facility, but also at our Chevron nitrification treatment plant facility. The most recent being in 2020, they worked on the sodium hypochlorite storage tank replacement project at ECL. The preliminary construction schedule for the project, if we were to award this month, is to issue a notice to proceed next month in March, with construction anticipated to take place from March to November of this year, with project close shortly thereafter at the end of the year. So at this time, I would like to read the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with Tharsos Incorporated for construction services on the Title 22 filters 3, 4, and 6 rehabilitation and replacement project in the amount of $1,742,240 plus a 20% contingency for a total not to exceed contract amount of $2,090,688. And that concludes my presentation. I was happy to answer any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Director Williams, any questions?
None at this time.
Director Houston, do you have any questions? Director Gray, do you have any questions? All right, well, I don't have any questions, and unless there's objections, we would move this item forward.
I concur. Well, this is a recommendation. And I second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
So then we will move on to the next item, which is the agreement for construction services for West Basin dash 23A Med Connection.
Yes, thank you again. For this presentation, again, we do have Orlando Rodriguez. This presentation does begin on packet page 9.
Take it over.
Back. Thank you, EJ. And as EJ mentioned, the copy of the staff report is on page 9. First, I'd like to start with some background on this particular project. Back in March of 2018, Golden State Water Company requested that MWD service connection WB23 be relocated from the Metropolitan Culver City feeder to the Sepulveda feeder. Currently, all of Golden State's interconnections serving Culver City are located on the Culver City feeder. So as you can imagine, if there are any disruptions to that feeder, Golden State would have issues supplying water to Culver City. So they requested essentially a new service connection, which is labeled WB23A in this case, to add some redundancy to their system in case of any services disruptions. Since 2018, MWD has completed the study phase for the project, preliminary design, and procurement and fabrication phases, and more recently, the final design drawings and specifications. And construction is anticipated to start this year. As MWD gets ready to initiate the solicitation process to procure construction services next month in March, they have requested that West Basin enter into a service agreement for the construction of that new service connection. The agreement includes terms for construction of the facility, payment, responsible parties, environmental documentation if necessary, suspensions of deliveries, and so forth. You can find a copy of the agreement between MWD and West Basin on page 12 of the agenda packet as attachment A. After a few discussions with our legal counsel here at West Basin, it was recommended that we then enter into what was called a sponsorship agreement with Golden State, seeing how they will be the ones that are utilizing and operating the service connection. So that agreement essentially states that Golden State will perform West Basin's obligations and hold West Basin harmless from any loss as described in the previously mentioned agreement with MWD. You can find a copy of that agreement between Golden State and West Basin on page 16 of the agenda packet, and that is attachment B. In the end, all parties have reviewed the agreements, including staff, and have agreed to enter into the agreement for the construction of the service connection. Golden State is ready and wants this project to move forward. So the preliminary construction schedule for this project is slated for MWD to advertise for bids March of 2024, award the construction contract in April, construction from April to November of this year, And project close at the end of the year. Per NWD's process, these agreements have to be executed between all parties, us and Golden State, for them to award the construction contract for the select. So at this time, I would like to read the two recommendations. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with Metropolitan Water District for the construction of Service Connection WB 23A and enter into a sponsorship inducement agreement with Golden State Water Company for the construction of Service Connection WB 23A. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add one thing, I really do want to commend staff. Our retail agencies are our highest priority, obviously, and the coordination between Golden State in this case and of course Metropolitan Water District, it takes quite a bit of work back and forth to make sure that everything is taken care of and that all parties are happy. And so I just want to compliment staff on all that work.
Thank you. Okay, Director Williams, do you have any questions?
Well, I did, but no, I don't. But it says here that this has been reviewed by both our executive engineer and a general manager. And from what I've heard here, I believe that I have no questions in terms of their work. This stuff like that. Everyone's happy with it.
Director Houston, do you have any questions?
No questions, just hope it's smooth sailing.
And Director Gray, do you have any questions? Okay, I don't have any questions on this, so with Director Williams' concurrence, we'll move this forward to the board.
Yes, I would second this, if this is a motion.
All right, and then we will move on to item 5C, which is the TI Commerce Center for the Torrance Gateway Phase 3 chemical water meter service. General Manager, I didn't understand item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item does begin on packet page 20. And for this presentation, Veronica Gobea, our engineering supervisor, will walk you through it.
Good afternoon, directors. Yes, this agreement is like the third phase of this particular site. Back in 2019, the TI Commerce Center, who owns the former Toyota campus, approached us and they wanted to get recycled water within their campus. So we went through an extensive review of plans, agreements for services to be provided to them. And the first phase included the design and installation of a pipeline and some services. And on that agreement, West Basin got reimbursed for the expenses that were produced during the elaboration of that work. And a few years later, there was a second phase that included a couple of services that were added to that particular pipeline. And services were minimum. So it was just basically in-house labor to inspect and review plans. And that phase started in 2021 and ended in 2022. In 2023, last year, the TI Center approached West Basin to add an additional phase to bring more recycled water to the campus by adding an additional 15 acre-feet of recycled water to the site. So West Basin started to work with them and basically designed lookup plans and also draft an agreement that again goes with the previous references that we have done in regards to reimbursement. So we are here to present now that agreement. The agreement has been reviewed by West Basin and its legal department, as well as by the TI Center, TI Commerce Center. And in agreement to that, we are here presenting it. And I will read the recommendation. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Staff recommends that the board authorizes the general manager to enter into an agreement W3079 with TI Commerce Center LLC for the design and installation of 5 additional recycled water services and transfer the ownership to West Basin upon construction of the project. And with that, I will open it for any questions.
Thank you. Director Williams, do you have any questions?
I don't.
I don't have any questions, but I just followed the history of that facility. Of course, they recycled water many years ago, and they've torn that down. So I think this is very exciting that they're redeveloping it, and certainly hope that support them.
Director Green, do you have any questions? Okay, I have just a couple of questions. This agreement is for reimbursement, was based to extend the recycled water line. Can you just talk a little bit, when you execute the agreement, how long it's gonna take to do the design and the construction?
Yes, so the design is already done. We have gone through review of plans basically and working with them in regards to making sure that they are complying with our specifications. And in regards to construction time, again, it's kind of developer driven, so we accommodate our schedule to meet their needs. So the site is pretty close by, so we are always able to get there and coordinate with them here that we're doing those inspections as necessary.
And did they do the design then, or?
They do hire a designer, Michael Baker is the designer who has done several recycled water pipelines. So, and they are familiar with our standard specifications. So the consultant is under the developer, and they do pay them directly.
We gonna be the ones building it, or?
They are. Yeah, they,
Property now will be building it.
yeah, they are building it. They're designing it. They do the construction management. And what we do is basically that review of plans to make sure that they are in compliance with separation criteria or any other requirement for design and installation. And then when they do the construction, we do coordinate with them to make sure that what is being transferred on the plans is also going into the deal. And
Then
get
once
reimbursed for
it's
that.
finished, then we will become the owners.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you. If there's no objections,
No
and
objections.
this one forward. All right, next item is the information calendar. So the first item on the information calendar is the DCS replacement project. And we'll be reviewing the options. So Mr. General Manager, would you like to agree with that?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to preface this presentation in organizing the agenda. We definitely wanted to prioritize this item because we want to familiarize yourselves with it. This is a crucial project as we move forward with our facility and, of course, the operation of the facility. And so for this presentation, we do have John Benner, our engineer 2. This pack does begin on packet page 232. And if you have any questions as we walk through this presentation, feel free to ask us to pause, and we can answer your questions as we go along.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. I'm here today to present information item 6A on the distributed control system replacement project. As EJ mentioned, this item begins on packet page 232. We'll be starting with the presentation on page 240. So this information item today provides a full project review, where we'll be discussing the background to the project, its main drivers, and options moving forward. So to begin with, I'll briefly touch on what DCS actually means. It stands for Distributed Control System. You may also know SCADA, which stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. West Basin system is technically a hybrid between these two, a DCS and SCADA system, but we commonly refer to it as DCS. So effectively, it's the control system that manages our entire recycled water production. DCS is both the brain and the nervous system of our facilities. It monitors systems, manages them, and links them together. It starts at the ground level with the equipment being controlled, the process equipment here in the graphic. This includes pretty much every piece of equipment we have installed, from small motorized valves to whole microfiltration treatment trains. That equipment is controlled via PLCs, programmable logic controllers. These tend to be placed in cabinets located close to the equipment, and they are usually installed by the manufacturer of the equipment as a package. Each of these process control packages are like a branch of a tree where they control only their local systems. These PLCs in the field communicate back to the controllers in the plant control room, and these controllers manage the various PLCs, providing communication between them and monitoring multiple processes at once. At West Basin, all of our controllers are proprietary units supplied by Emerson Electric. These controllers are in turn managed by servers where data is stored and entered, and operators can manage and review the control of the site via workstations, both in the control room and in the field. Our current setup allows for management of the satellite plants from ECL remotely to reduce the need for 24/7 staff at these sites. And the remote control and monitoring is possible through the network we've created, both between our facilities and inside them. Given the abundance of remote control in our system, cybersecurity is incredibly important. And West Basin's IT department works hard to ensure that our systems can withstand external attacks, which are unfortunately becoming more frequent in our industry. So if the process controls are like the branches of a tree, then the controllers, servers, workstations, and network are like the trunk. We call these our backbone systems. Everything flows through these, and recycled water production of any kind would be pretty much impossible if any of them failed. Whereas if a particular process control such as PLC failed, we lose that particular piece of equipment, which may be something as large as an MF train, but could be as small as a super pump. Approximately 2/5 of our DCS hardware is what we consider backbone equipment, while the remaining 3/5 is process control. This slide details the issues we have with our current DCS at West Basin. In 2020, we contracted a consultant to conduct a thorough audit of our DCS. They deemed that over 2/3 of our entire system is currently obsolete, with a further 12% becoming obsolete within a few years. The graphic here on the right shows the proportions of each category that were deemed obsolete. Obsolescence in this sense has a strict definition. It means that the components are no longer manufactured or supported by their original manufacturer. This means that if they fail, it becomes difficult to find replacements on the market, and then it's also a struggle to find firms willing to service all of them. Currently running into this issue at every level in our system. As an example, we are only one of 3 organizations in North America that currently uses the controllers, the type of controllers we use. So both spares and technical support are hard to come by. Further investigation by staff found that over 30% of this obsolete hardware has the potential to cause a full recycled water production shutdown of either ECL or one of our satellite facilities. A single failure in our system could lead to months of downtime. We've recently experienced this issue at the Torrance facility, where some obsolete PLCs failed and took down the entire RO system. While we were luckily able to quickly find replacements, we struggled to get those replacement devices working with our old system. And so I believe it was only this morning that the system came back online. And so we were able to move off the potable water. This obsolescence and lack of hardware availability is further compounded by other issues. Here at West Basin, we have limited institutional knowledge on how our DCS is set up and operated, as it has traditionally been managed by specialists on the contract operator side. We are running extremely outdated software across our entire system, most of which is no longer supported by the manufacturer, meaning no service updates, no cybersecurity patches, and no technical support for 7 years. This presents a significant security risk, as our system is currently vulnerable to cyber attacks, similar to those that occurred at water districts across the country in recent years. As I mentioned, our IT department does a stellar job in keeping our system protected, but they are severely limited in what they can do due to the age of our system. Next slide, please. Here I've got a slide with some of the recent DCS failures. While they may seem like low-dollar repairs individually, each of these cause significant disruptions to both our daily operations and ongoing projects, and the issues appear to be escalating. Prior to last year, we were experiencing major DCS failures once every 6 months to a year. We've now experienced 3 major failures in the last 4 months. In addition, our older system requires special extra measures to be taken when integrating new systems. As time and technology progresses, the gap between the new systems we're installing and our old DCS grows. An incompatibility was identified a few weeks ago on the JMM Phase 2 project that will likely require up to 7 weeks to overcome, and the contractor proposed an initial cost of almost $2,000 to resolve it. $200,000, sorry. If we had a new DCS, the integration would have been seamless, but instead the contractor is having to bring on board experts from across the US that specialize in these old obsolete systems. And as I mentioned, in addition, when hardware fails, it can be incredibly challenging to find replacements. The power failure at ECL back in November caused some RO process controls to fail, and it took us weeks to find suitable replacement components. When a database failed at JMM in July last year, our Phase 2 subcontractor had to procure individual computer components from across the country and build a new one from scratch. I've already mentioned the latest failure that is on this slide, the PLCs of Torrance that left us having to revert to potable water. The majority of DCS components across our plants are on the verge of failure, and when they fail, we are finding that it is incredibly challenging to find adequate replacements. In recent discussions with Emerson to find a replacement controller for JMM, one of our most critical backbone components, we've had to resort to asking other organizations across the country if they possibly have spares in storage from when they upgraded many years ago. The current understanding there is that there may be 5 suitable controllers in the entire country we could use. And we have 34 controllers across all of our facilities that run our entire recycle culture operation. So the situation has gotten dire and does require an urgent plan of action. And while this slide depicts a number of similar failures the last few years, each of which took significant time and resources to resolve, what this slide doesn't show are the numerous daily workarounds and temporary fixes that our contract operators and operations staff are having to implement on a daily basis to keep the system going. So that's why this project has repeatedly been ranked as one of the most critical projects the district's undertaking. So how do we get here? Well, traditionally, we've only implemented DCS upgrades as part of individual projects. So the backbone of our system has been left mostly intact since the plants were built, with some critical pieces of hardware remaining in place since 1995. Over time, we've grafted on new PLCs and process equipment as we've added new processes such as PCL Phase 5. This has led to a patchwork system across our sites with newer tech connected to older components via elaborate patches and limiting converters. The majority of our entire system is now obsolete, and it's becoming harder and harder to connect modern technology up to the older aspects of our system. The main reason this has occurred is because it is expensive, both in terms of cost and loss reduction to refurbish the backbone of the DCS system. Some downtime is inevitable and there are risks. But the fact is that our aged backbone, that's the controllers, servers, and network devices, are currently limiting the capability of our newer processes and preventing us from making even minor refurbishments to the system. And in addition, as I mentioned, our control systems are mostly no longer vendor supported due to their age. So this presents significant risks as we move forward with the DCS that has limited technical support. To that end, the aim of this project is to fully update the backbone of our distributed control system within 2 years. By upgrading just the backbone infrastructure to modern levels, we can offset approximately 80% of the risk we're currently facing for around a third of the cost of the full system overhaul. Next slide, please. You may remember that we came to this committee with a plan in August of last year. The plan then was to proceed with an upgrade through Emerson Electric, the provider of most of our current backbone system. We spent several months working with Emerson, visiting our sites, digging deep into our current system, figuring out what needs to be upgraded. And in November, we received a proposal from them for a backbone upgrade that would cost between $4 and $6 million and would resolve most of our issues within 1 to 2 years. However, Emerson's system is proprietary, as shown by the letter to the district in attachment B of this report. Servicing, installation, hardware procurement, software support is all done directly through Emerson, with no competitors or third parties able to assist or provide returns. And moving ahead with this proposed upgrade would lock the district into this system for the foreseeable future, which could potentially be a decade or more. While we are in a critical state with our current system, staff believes that we should not rush into locking the district into a lengthy proprietary agreement purely for the sake of expediency. Therefore, staff have reached out to other vendors, specialist consultants in recent months, in an attempt to establish the best possible path forward for the district. I mentioned on the last slide that Emerson are a proprietary system. While I'm sure all familiar what it means, this table lays out the main differences when it comes to our control system. Effectively, a proprietary system limits the use of third parties to maintain, install, or modify the system. This limits the district's ability to both competitively bid work and apply pressure to underperforming vendors. The district's had issues, particularly recently, with being locked into proprietary agreements, as if the district is unhappy with the quality or level of service from their system provider, there is little recourse beyond a large capital expense to remove and reinstall a new system. However, the main benefit of a proprietary system is they tend to be cheaper upfront and quicker to install. This is mostly due to their plug-and-play nature, meaning that they can be implemented with minimal design work, but also because the vendor tends to absorb some startup costs in order to get a customer onto their proprietary system. Next slide, please. That brings us to our options. The first of these is what I mentioned as our previous plan, to sole source the upgrades with our current vendor, Emerson Electric. As mentioned, this is likely both the lowest cost and shortest duration option. However, it would lock us into that proprietary system potentially for a decade or more. Obviously, this option would be a sole source through a single vendor, so the district will also not get the opportunity to assess any other options on the market. In total, staff projects that this option would cost between $5 and $8 million in total to enact and would take up to 12 months to procure and install the upgraded system. The process would be as you see here, with district staff working both with Emerson directly, shown here in blue, and an owner's representative to protect the district's interests throughout the upgrade, shown here in red. So this was our original intended plan. However, staff now believes that it's in the district's best interest to move away from sole sourcing and to evaluate the available systems so that the district can make a fully informed decision that will meet its needs for many years to come. The second option here is to proceed with the district standard procurement method, whereby a designer is procured to conduct a full design, shown here in red, and then the design is bid out publicly for construction. The classic design bid build we use in many of our projects. And then the district will also procure a construction management team to oversee the installation. This procurement method will allow the district to undertake full analysis of different control systems on the market, design a system that fits the district's needs, and also to conduct a full life cycle analysis to ensure the district installs a system that's not just a good upgrade now, but works in the district's interest for the foreseeable future. This procurement method has potential to be both costly and lengthy, with the current staff estimate being around $7 to $12 million and taking around 2 years. There is also the potential here that if we move through the design stage and we design a system that is so specific to meet district's needs, it may be we have to sole source to a particular vendor. So we may end up having to sole source to a particular vendor at the end anyway during the construction phase. Next slide, please. The third and final option is the one recommended by staff. So this is a progressive design build. The district is not completed a progressive design build project. Legislation enabling it only came into effect in 2022. However, staff believes this project is an ideal candidate. A progressive design build procurement is similar to a standard traditional design build, where the full design and construction is given to a single firm to complete. In a traditional design build, this allows for reduced project durations, usually lower overall costs, and most of the time minimal change orders or costly design misinterpretations. However, this usually comes with increased risk due to the lack of competitive bidding at the construction stage and reduced owner input throughout the project. Public works procurement legislation does not allow for a traditional design build procurement used on this type of work, as it's limited to only new facilities, and this is a rehabilitation or replacement. However, legislation was passed in 2022 that allows for progressive design builds on projects such as this, so long as the total project value is over $5 million. A progressive design build procurement method has similar pros and cons to a traditional design build, except that it has a break point in the middle where a construction cost is agreed based on the design so far. So it's usually completed around the 60% design phase stage. This reduces the risk of being forced to commit to higher than expected construction costs, as the district has the opportunity to negotiate or reject the proposed phase 2 cost and seek alternatives. To further reduce this risk, the district intends to onboard an owner's representative to oversee the consultant and protect the district's interests. Staff believes that the DCS backbone replacement project would be a good candidate for this type of procurement method, as once we select a control system, the costs will be far more easily foreseeable than with a traditional construction project. Most components are off the shelf. Vendors tend to be more than happy to assist in recommending setups, and system installation costs are relatively simple to calculate compared to, say, constructing a treatment process or installing a new pipeline. The intention here is that the design build consultant would conduct a thorough analysis of both the district's needs and the available systems, make a recommendation, and propose a price to install and commission the recommended system. If the proposed cost is accepted by the district, the consultant would then take on the role of an integrator and work with the recommended vendor to install and commission the control system. This use of a control systems integrator is regularly undertaken by public entities to conduct control system projects such as this. The Encina Wastewater Authority enlisted services of an integrator to both design and install an upgraded control system at their facilities in 2017. Between 2002 and 2015, Sweetwater Authority down near San Diego enlisted an integrator to design and implement the upgrade of their control systems. And since 2013, the Inland Empire Utility Agency has been using integrators to systematically upgrade and replace their control systems for their sites. The benefits of this procurement method are the same as with the previous option. It allows district staff to fully analyze available systems, both for now and in the next decades. However, a progressive design build procurement can be conducted much quicker than a standard design bid build, and will likely, or should be, much lower cost. Current estimates show that the project will likely cost between $6 and $10 million and can be completed within 18 months. So staff recommends this procurement option due to the combination of speed, mid-range cost, and the ability to select a system that will serve the district in years to come. Slide, please. So on to the penultimate slide, project finances. As of January 1st, we've spent a total of $814,831 on this project. That's since the project's inception in 2019. Just over half of that total was spent on the comprehensive audit we conducted, which finished last year. In total, for the entire control system replacement project, we're looking at potential project expenditure of up to $22 million over the next 10 years. That's upgrading the entire control system. The initial backbone refurbishment that staff are proposing today will comprise between a third and a half of that total. So that's the estimated total cost of $6 to $10 million over the next 2 years. This backbone refurbishment aims to solve approximately 80% of our system's issues and allows us to slowly replace remaining systems as and when necessary over the next decade. We have secured $822,743 refinery funding to date. However, with a total project cost of up to $22 million, we would be able to request further refinery funding under our current agreements of up to $3.6 million. That's 3.6 in addition to the $822,000. These additional funds will be requested as the project costs become more concrete over the next few months. In terms of this current fiscal year, we had allocated $1,200,786. However, as of January 1st, we've only spent around $37,000, all of which has been in staff labour. We intend to use some of the remaining budget to onboard a consultant for this backbone refurbishment and to purchase stopgap equipment to try and minimise risk over the next year while we conduct the design. But most of the remaining $1.2 million will not be spent this fiscal year. Just the final slide, our next steps. Although this is only an information item, it's important to reiterate staff's intended direction. So staff currently intends to proceed with option 3, a progressive design build approach for the DCS backbone refurbishment. Staff believes this option offers the quickest path to refurbishing this outdated and problematic system, whilst allowing the district to evaluate its options and select a system that will best serve the district for many years, and as I said before, perhaps over a decade. In terms of next steps, staff will take some time to develop the documentation for the progressive design build procurement, we'll issue a request for proposals, and then bring this back to the board with a recommendation. Due to the importance of timing this project, staff aims to release the request for proposals in April and hopes to return to the board with a recommendation in June of this year. Slide, please. And with that, my presentation's over. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, Director Williams, do you have any questions?
Yes, is this item informational or action item?
That's an interesting point. Yeah, at the same point. I thought it was going to be, and it is an informational item. But it also seems to be an item that is requires some decisions and is moving. The intent is to move it forward. Am I wrong in that?
No, it's I don't know.
No, that's correct. The general flow on most items, we like to bring an information item to you to kind of walk you through the issues, walk you through the options. Ultimately, we like to take that feedback and then bring a corresponding action item. This particular presentation has been in the works for several months now, and so I felt it was prudent to bring it for you to see the different options, to see the thought that went into it, looking at cost saving options, but yet trying to deal with a crucial issue that is really brought about significant challenges to not just staff, but of course our operations there at the ECL. So I don't know if, John, if you have anything to add.
No, just that with the standard project process, the first time we would have seen this as an action item would have been bringing bids and a recommendation to you in June. And we thought that given the size of the project and the decision we're making, we thought it best to bring an information item earlier to give you into the
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, what I don't know. Sounds-
Information
yeah.
request.
Sounds like, you guys have, put together a pretty informative, piece here. And it sounds like there's enough information to make a decision, but, I don't know. Hear what the rest of you.
Sure.
Number one, thank you very much. Number two, first of all, I was like, wow, this is all just nothing but good news you had to give us. I mean, this is, immense, quite frankly. You sort of answered the question. It is what it is. I think it's unfortunate that the district has waited so long to deal with this. And in all the years, I think we've sat up here and Director Williams and I, we really haven't gotten in the weeds like this. And so, and I know there's a number of newer staff, so I don't, there's no pointing any fingers here, but more importantly, it's just like, I don't understand how we let this go so long in our organization. So we all know it needs to be addressed, hands down. One of the things I did want to ask, I mean, maybe EJ probably knows this best, is if there will be any grants or any kind of funding that we can, hold up to help us with this at all or not. Because, I mean, we're not the only water district having these challenges, but if there's any way to offset some of these costs, no matter what decision we make.
Let me just address a few issues. First and foremost, this project is included in the 10-year CIP. It is something that staff has been working on for some time. I don't want you to think that anybody, staff-wise, is seeking to delay this. This is really taking the feedback from the committee and the board to try to find the most cost-effective way to deal with a very significant issue. Secondly, West Basin is perhaps now the leader in the industry as far as advocating for state and federal funding for existing infrastructure. As you know, it's very common to fund new facilities and new infrastructure, and there's opportunities there, but existing and aging infrastructure, there's very little funding for. We would be happy to look. We tend to look under every rock. I know Matt Bay is in the room, and he and his team are always looking for funding. It's possible, but I wouldn't say that this effort should be delayed looking for funding that may or may not be there.
No, I wholly agree. I think hopefully maybe there might be something out there at some point to get access. But I wouldn't want to delay it either. And then my last thing on this is, I mean, I understand what you all recommended. I also see that the sole source does look like it's the least expensive and it looks like it's faster process. I think ultimately I'm going to definitely defer to my colleagues to help make this decision better. I'm the loss as well. It's what's the right path here. It's very expensive. It's going to take time. I'm a little nervous with these other two proposals because there's so many pieces and fingers in the pot, if you will. So, again, I don't know the best answer, but that's where I'm thinking at this point. Thank you very much.
Director Gray, do you have any questions? Okay. This is a pretty substantial item. And I think over time, you can interrupt me and add kind of commentary / question. Our overall control system, over time, it's just going to maintain this breakdown. Yeah, 100% of the system is proprietary, or is it basically the software portion is proprietary?
The controllers and the software. So the controllers control the entire system effectively at a higher level, and all of those, that hardware is proprietary and the software associated with those that we use to run our system is proprietary.
So the controllers are proprietary and we cannot find substitute controllers because they don't work with the software.
Because they don't work with the software or the rest of the system. It's unfortunately,
If we had a different software system and it was software driven, can we take advantage of the hardware components? I got the impression from your presentation, and tell me if I'm wrong, that your intention is to replace the majority of the hardware and obviously provide new software. If we were doing it today, or at least the way I've done it today, is the hardware is kind of independent and more or less you can plug different hardware components in, and the software is obviously going to be whoever does the software tends to be more proprietary.
unfortunately not in this case, the
In this
proprietary
case,
system,
everything
part of the
So
moving forwards, we'd like to separate those.
all of the hardware, even the PLCs are proprietary?
No, all of the controllers are proprietary, and then the controllers communicate with I/O cards in racks, and those I/O cards go out to the PLCs. PLCs are package processes, so they're separate, and the I/O cards take the information that comes in, sends to the controllers. The controllers, the I/O cards, the software. So effectively, most of the backbone is proprietary.
Right, so what we're looking at, the guts of what you're looking to procure, replace, is the software package, the controllers, and the I/O cards.
Yes, and the servers along with those. The servers are incredibly outdated, but we haven't been able to upgrade those because the controllers limit what servers they work with. So once we upgrade the controllers and the software, we can then also upgrade the servers to modern servers that provide us the protections we like, cybersecurity wise, data protection.
Okay. And today, anytime anything breaks down, you can't go, the original, supplier of this was Emerson, but they're not maintaining or supporting it.
They no longer support it. They haven't supported the system,
It
but
won't come out, given that it was their system.
they will come out for quite a high cost. And they have only,
Everything here seems to be a high cost.
but they have only a few technicians that are familiar with these older systems. One of the main issues we have is hardware. When we had a controller fail recently, we reached out to Emerson for a replacement. They reached out to a number of their clients, and we believe we found 5 across the country in kind of back rooms and storerooms and warehouses. We also have 34 controllers across our system, so we may need more than 5 in the future, and relying on only 5 across the country is pretty precarious.
Because we have not been able to upgrade.
Please speak louder, I mean, hard to hear you.
Over the years, we haven't been able to upgrade the system because when I first started, which is about 10 years ago, I already heard about that the system is been obsolete, like a lot of backbones, the controllers. Unfortunately, because what John had brought up, we will require like a significant shutdown. This project has been in the CIP book, but we just been pushed to the back burner until now. Like now, we really have to address it. So this system has been obsolete for a number of years, and we have been in for the past 10 years or even so going to eBay to get whatever is available on the market. Some of the cars that John had brought up, like there's only 5 left in the country, and because it's not being supported by Emerson anymore. And this is the dilemma that we're running into to keep the existing system running, and as well as just working with this obsolete parts and system. So the software and the backbone, the controller is by Emerson, and that's just the proprietary system. That's what we have right now.
Okay, and this is basically controls all the plants at CNO, Torrance, and
And Chevron Education and Hyperion.
And Hyperion.
Yeah, I think that's either one. Okay. So it seems like you have moved forward with a team on this. Is that correct? Or did I read more into your presentation?
Sorry, what do you mean by moving forward with the team?
That there's a team in place that you're looking to do basically the design.
Not yet. We haven't put this out for bid yet. It would be a public bidding process.
So what we're looking to do, what you're basically asking us is to really give Leslie to go out for an RFP on a design build team. For progressive design build.
Yes.
Do you have comfort with putting together that design build RFP?
Yes, I believe we can develop that. Design build RFP.
Speak up a bit, would you please?
Sorry. Yes. Did you ask, do we have comfort developing that?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe.
Doing that, or did we have, because I also saw that we have spent in that $800,000 that you spent, or that we have spent, 400,000 of that was for consultants.
Yeah, for the audit, and actually as part of that audit, the consultant recommended a progressive design build approach for this project. They actually provided, it was actually unasked for, but they provided a big stack of documentation as to how to conduct a progressive design build, because they had conducted a similar one with another organization. And so they provided legal documentation, procurement documents, a sample
So
RFP.
that's what's gonna be the basis of. What were you talking about then?
That was Corolla.
And their cost estimate for going out on the progressive design build, the whole thing will come in the $10 million range.
No, their recommendation was to do a progressive design build for the entire system. So replacing the backbone, but also replacing PLCs at every single plant, which is a huge undertaking. And their estimated cost was between 22 and $29 million.
But we're not doing that.
We're not doing
My earlier questions, you told me we were just basically going to replace the servers, the controllers, the I/O cards, and the software that.
Yeah. Correct. We believe that by upgrading just the backbone, we can eliminate about 80% of the risks. And then down the line, we can upgrade PLCs as we
I
went.
would agree. I don't understand why you have to replace every PLC unless you put an upgrade for what we use. I have been in places where we say we only use Allen Bradley PLCs and don't show me anything else. So. I think you showed in there was a lot of information, like right now, you spent there's one pending item that we're spending $100,000 or something. Let's go back for that.
Packet page 250.
There's a lot of slides, there's make a note of that slide, but, the other item, you did mention that this was budgeted this last year. Is the slide that you do have up there right now. And we've only spent $40,000 under the 1.2 million. What was the 1.2 million intended to do? And I'm glad that we didn't spend a lot of money that we didn't need to. So I'm not criticizing that, I'm just making a comment. So what was this 40,000, why spend only 40,000 in the 1.2 million?
So the $1.2 million was originally intended back when we had the budget for this fiscal year around this time last year. The $1.2 million was originally intended to procure spare PLCs, spare controllers, wherever we could get them to provide a stopgap for the year while we figured out what we would need to do with this project. Given the huge potential price tag, we wanted to take some time to evaluate it, and this was to buy us some time. We then approached Emerson around the start of the fiscal year and started working with them on a potential solution. We ended up getting their proposal in November, and we evaluated their proposal and have looked at it and decided that actually it's best for us to go out for a public bid. So that $40,000 is just staff time in taking consultants around and evaluating those proposals and creating this presentation.
So we didn't really purchase anything.
Not yet. However, one of our recommendations is to use some of that funds for the remaining fiscal year to purchase some replacements, such as replacement PLCs for the issue that we had at Torrance, to try and mitigate those risks over the next year. Because if we move into a progressive design build, we're going to be doing the design for around a year. We're probably not going to be installing components for another 18 months or so. So we need to address the risk in that time period.
Kind of jumping around a little bit. What is your time frame to put together this RFP, given that sounds like you have an awful lot of background information assembled by previous?
I'm hoping that we can put together the RFP and have it out in April and then bring it back to the board for award in June.
Given that this is a lot to swallow, and this is for the board's input also, maybe bring back the RFP to review. We'll probably have some additional, after today, questions that you might want to address when you bring back that RFP. Maybe it won't be quite done, but in March, in a month, if you want to put this out in April, within a month, you should have the bulk of the RFP complete.
I think March might be a little bit soon given our posting, but April we can definitely bring back and then if
I'll challenge you. I think you guys can. You have an awful lot of work to say about it. I think just a matter of now going through there and selectively taking out the portions of the material that you have for the software and the servers, controllers, and I/O cards, putting that together. I know you reached out to Emerson. There's a couple of other people that might be worthwhile reaching out to, and that may be part of a design build team anyways. I don't know how that's gonna come to fruition at the end of the day. But in that same time period, maybe you might want to reach out to an Emerson like firm.
Yeah.
To see what.
So we've reached out in the last couple of months. We've reached out to Rockwell, Schneider Electric, Siemens, Honeywell. Sorry.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, we've done site walks with them. We actually received an initial kind of rough order of magnitude from one of those firms as well, that actually aligns quite closely with Emerson's. So yeah, we're already underway with that process and reaching out to those companies.
Honeywell that gave you
It wasn't Honeywell though. No, Honeywell they're the ones we've only recently met with. It's pretty quite difficult to meet with them actually, but yeah, we've only met with them quite recently. We're doing a site walk with them soon. But yeah, the others we've met, done site walks with and shown them our system. We've had pretty lengthy workshops with them as well to get everybody up to speed so that we can kind of hit the ground running when we get a consultant on board.
Right, well, my comfort zone would be that you come back in March with that rough draft of the RFP for this and maybe flush out a little bit more. I mean, you presented a lot in a very compressed fashion today, and I think it's kind of been overwhelming. To be honest, after I read it, first on the title. So what are our options in terms of equipment that we want to purchase and things like that, as opposed to just look at the options for the server? If, your concurrences with that?
I don't know. I have faith in staff. You've put a lot of time in this, if in energy. If you are strongly supportive of what you've done, based on what we've been not playing, but dealing with this for, 10 years, that if we continue on the same path, I don't think we're gonna get much better. So I like the idea that you have going forward. Yeah. But
We're gonna move forward. We have to move forward.
we gotta go forward, I understand that, but like now, not,
Not in 10 months.
right. So,
All right, so bring it back next month and then we'll put you on track to, as you said, put it out on a.
'cause you're ready to rest your careers on this, right?
All right, so we'll move on to the next one, the technical planning study summary for the hydraulic analysis of potential new supply source. General manager.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me just preface this item. Typically, we'd have our Executive Manager of Engineering Operations, Parker Masurlian, here for this presentation. Unfortunately, he's out ill at this time. We do have Orlando Rodriguez, our Senior Engineer. We're happy to go through this item in as much detail as you'd like. We can make it briefer or provide the entirety of the presentation. But I wanted to just let you know that the reason this item is being brought back, this was included within our budget. This is one of the technical planning studies that we had identified as potentially being needed in order to bring pure water into the West Basin service area. And I was very pleased that not only did the work get done, it was done with the partnership of Metropolitan Water District and was done with no cost other than staff time for the technical planning study. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Orlando. But again, it's at the pleasure of the chair. We can go into as much detail as you'd like.
I'd say just do a quick presentation unless the board has more questions.
What presentation?
So do a fresh presentation.
Sure. Thank you, EJ. So the presentation starts on page 259 of the agenda packet. But I'll go ahead and move forward if that's okay. As we could go to page, sorry, 263 of the agenda packet. And that really is to highlight what EJ mentioned was the hydraulic analysis. There you go, perfect. So as EJ mentioned, as part of the Pure Water program, we did work with Metropolitan Water District and performing a hydraulic analysis, basically to convey the best treated water from Pure Water to our distribution system. Metropolitan Water District procured the services of HDR. HDR has worked on our recycled water master plan, created a hydraulic model for our distribution system, which is essentially a working graphical representation of that, pipelines and so forth. So with that being said, for the hydraulic analysis portion, we did consider 3 phases on how water would be conveyed to our distribution system. As you see there on the screen, there's phase 1A, 10 MGD, phase 1B, 30 MGD, phase 2, 60 MGD, which is kind of the ultimate condition. And really quick recap, phase 1A is to supply existing West Basin customer demands on the south system, just for purposes of making this simpler. We consider the south system being south of our Edward C. Little facility, and then north of that, the north system. So just for simplicity. So in that case, phase 1A would be serving those demands. Phase 1B would serve the demands from phase 1A, as well as some additional demands at the refineries and some IPR demands. And then phase 2, both phase 1A, phase 1D demands, as well as the demands on the North system and so forth. Next slide, please. So just to, there you go. So in using, sorry, one back, there you go. The hydraulic model from the HCR created and used for this analysis. As you can see there, in the analysis, essentially what it indicates is from the proposed turnout structure that MWD is proposing, this is at the corner of, or near the intersection of Del Amo and Alameda Street as it travels north on Alameda, then east on Del Amo. They're proposing a turnout structure at that location, and then our closest connection point would be where our distribution system is at the intersection of Wilmington and Del Amo. So just over a mile from their proposed turnout structure. So for phase 1A, the hydraulic analysis indicates that the supply from Pure Water is able to provide adequate pressures to serve customers in the south system. There are some lower pressures at the very extent of the distribution system, but not too many. And in this scenario, there are no improvements necessary to supply those demands for phase 1A. And if you look at the exhibit there on the right, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but essentially the colors in typical fashion, green meaning adequate, good pressures throughout the distribution system. And at the very extent of it, you'll see some blues, purples, which indicate lower pressures and so forth, but we're still able to essentially provide water to those customers. Next slide, please. Here is phase 1B, once again, serving those existing demands, and then some additional demands for the refineries and IPR demands in the area. In this particular case, we are still able to provide adequate pressures to customers on the south system, but if you see there in kind of the middle bottom there, you'll see some red in that location, which that indicates that there are some lower pressures there in supplying 30 MGD throughout that south system. So the recommendation at that particular location to serve those customers, as well as some potential future IPR demands, is to upgrade that pipeline from 12 inches to 20 inches at that location to basically provide adequate pressures. And then once again, at the extent, you'll see some of the blues and purples, but mostly green, which indicates fairly well pressures throughout our distribution system. Next slide, please. And here for phase 2, which is kind of our ultimate scenario here, which is essentially conveying 60 MGD from Pure Water to our distribution system. I know it looks a little bit scary, the red throughout our distribution system. And essentially what that indicates is that we're unable to essentially provide serviceable pressures to, and these are primarily due to head loss from the turnout to then the extent of our distribution system. So in this particular scenario, which means that we'll also be providing supply to the North system, what we would be doing here is essentially using the product water storage tanks at our ECL facility for storage. So essentially we would be pumping not only to customers in the south system to ECL, and then from ECL using those storage tanks and product water pumps to then distribute or supply water to the North system. So because of all the red that you see there, the consultant HCR did recommend some improvements in being able to essentially provide adequate pressures to our customers. So in this particular case, they are recommending 2 booster pump stations along the south system, some flow control valves at our ECL facility, and then to be able to essentially convey 60 MGD to our distribution system, the recommendation there is to, from the turnout structure to our distribution system, to essentially install a 54-inch pipe from Del Amo and Alameda to our distribution system at Del Amo and Wilmington. So that's about 6,400 linear feet of pipe that we would be installing. Next slide, please. And in summary, in the hydraulic analysis and the technical memorandum here, you'll see the demands per phases here, phase 1A, phase 1B, and then phase 2 ultimately. approximately 60 MGD from Pure Water. And for the recommendations, as you see at the bottom there, this is for the installation of the pipeline, 54 and 6,400 linear feet, 2 booster pump stations and flow control valves at the product water storage tanks. Conceptually speaking, we're looking at around $43 million to do all that work, installation and so forth. Next slide, please. So here I'd like to just discuss some next steps really quick. As EJ mentioned, as part of the budget process last year and also during our CIP program or technical planning, sorry, we did identify 7 studies in total that were included in the budget for 23-24. But in this particular scenario, we are prioritizing 3, as you see there. First one being the Pure Water Interconnection Pipeline Evaluation, the existing distribution pipeline assessment, and the backup potable connection study. And these we feel need to be the first studies that are to be performed for conveying water from Pure Water to us, to West Basin distribution system. So next slide, please. So here is just a really quick background. I'm not sure if you recall this or not, but these were presented in the budget process. I'll just go over them really quickly. The Pure Water Interconnection Pipeline Evaluation, as I mentioned, this is for installation of the pipeline from the turnout structure at Del Amo and Alameda to our distribution system. What this study would do is essentially look at some pipeline alternatives for alignments. I know that it makes sense to just go across the Del Amo straight shot to our distribution system, but we do have to consider other options. And looking at that, we would also look at alternative turnout structures, things of that nature, storage options, identify jurisdictional agency, permit requirements, and so forth. What I do want to say here is that the turnout structure is part of NWD's scope of work in designing that. So we would be essentially designing a pipeline from that turnout to our distribution system. So that is the this particular study. Next slide, please. And then here the existing distribution pipeline assessment. It would be pretty obvious that if we are to convey advanced treated water into our distribution system, we have been essentially conveying Title 22 water in that system. So over the years, as you could only imagine, biofilm and other things are residing in those pipelines. So in this particular assessment, we would be looking at essentially all data, really, like what's essentially in there and so forth. Assessing the interior of the pipelines itself, alternatives to cleaning. There's a lot of methods out there. I'm sure you've heard of like hydrojetting, pigging, and so forth. So we'll be looking at all those options. And then, the extent of our distribution system, we have miles and miles of pipelines. So this can't be done in a year or so, right? We need to kind of program this to a level. We need to do certain miles of pipe throughout, I don't know how many years, to be honest with you, but just on and on until we essentially clean everything. We've never undertaken something like this. So this assessment would essentially at the end put together a program and a cost estimate to do all that work. So that is this particular study. Next slide, please. Then last but not least, for the 3 here, this is the backup potable connection study. West Basin does have obligations to essentially meet our demands to our customers. So in this particular study, if for whatever reason, supply from Pure Water is disrupted at any time, we still have to meet those obligations. So what this particular study is looking at is, I'm looking at a backup connection somewhere within our distribution system to be able to provide water when, for whatever reason, we don't have enough from Pure Water itself. So we're able to kind of balance that out, right? If it peaks up here, Pure Water is just lower or whatnot, we're able to then supplement and be able to meet our demands across the distribution system at any given time. So this particular study will be looking at alternative options, connection points and so forth, storage improvements, and then at the very end, a cost-benefit analysis for this particular study. Next slide, please. And we now on the grant funding. I do want to mention that staff did evaluate several grant funding opportunities that are available out there for these particular studies. And this one specifically, we have identified one offered by the United States Bureau of Reclamation. This particular grant is the Water Smart Planning and Project Design Grant, which is focused on planning efforts to essentially supply or diverse water supplies and management solutions for providing water to the region. All of these studies will be, I guess, potentially be submitted in one application. They're under different tasks, so all three will be submitted under one grant application. The estimated cost for the three studies is just over $1 million. And this particular grant has a potential funding of up to $400,000. So if best case scenario, we're able to achieve this grant funding, West Basin's potential cost share would be just north of $700,000. So offsetting some of the costs that we would need to perform those three studies. And this particular grant application, the deadline for this is April 2nd of this year. So we do have time if we're interested in applying for this particular grant here.
Mr. Chairman, the one thing I would add is that I've been looking at the technical planning studies. Obviously, the Camp for Water process that is being managed by Metropolitan Water District is potentially going to delay kind of some of the different looks as far as how they proceed with pure water. Some of our technical planning studies that are related to pure water can be delayed into other fiscal years. And of course, we'll continue to work with Metropolitan Water District as they have a significant benefit as far as working with West Basin and introducing the water into our system potentially. And so we'll continue to work with our partners. I don't anticipate us applying for a grant on this at this time. And we'll have to look at that as part of the budget. But again, I think that there's time for us to evaluate.
Anything else?
That's the last one.
Director Williams, do you have some comments on that? Director Gray, are you still with us?
Time.
I think we. There's an awful lot to discuss here, and we're gonna be a little bit pressed for time. We still have two more items to go through. Just a couple of comments. There's no criticality in this. The general manager has talked, given where Metropolitan is and you Camp for Water, the reality of this coming online in the next 5 years would be fantastic. Not very likely. So there's an awful lot of time to plan for. But I do have a couple of questions, and maybe it's in the reports that have been written. When we show the Del Amo connection, that's on the 7-foot diameter pipe that we're coming off.
Yes.
And Met's gonna build that short segment to the west of the knee of the Del Amo, of the Met 7-foot diameter pipe.
You're saying the pipeline from,
Yeah, if you look at that Del Amo intersection there, there's a knee, there's a bend, and then that would be on your presentation.
right, 270, page 270?
Hey, 264, 265, whichever one you want to go to. Anyways, were we gonna come up with a 54-inch line from the 7-foot diameter pipe? Okay. So Met's gonna build that.
That's not my understanding. What
My question.
is Met gonna
Is
build
Met
that?
gonna build it?
Right now, no, they're only gonna build the turnout structure. And it would be on us to, yeah, Well, yes.
What is the operating pressure? And you don't have to answer this. But what's the operating pressure of that 84-inch pipeline at that location?
I don't have that right now, but okay.
Because I understand that's things, that their operating pressure is gonna be pretty high. And you can see that we have this static losses is interesting why that would be the case. Anyways, if you could get back to me with a little bit more of the details on that. And I think then to the general manager's point, if this project were to come, we're only gonna be taking some of this water. And we even talked about what the cost of this water is gonna be. How is Med gonna price this water? Do we have any, have they shared any ideas with?
The discussion on this project has been ongoing for the couple of years. And so we don't have any concrete information. And that's why I'm saying, I think that we'll continue to work with Metropolitan Water District as this project moves through the Camp for Water evaluation process. Obviously, affordability is a key issue for projects within that process. And so we'll look at that, but we'll continue to work with Metropolitan Water District. I mean, we're very supportive of the project in general, but the devil's in the details. And so we'll just have to play it by ear, but we've got some time, as you mentioned.
And if Matt ends up going, they are studying options still to this day of taking that water, going to direct potable reuse as opposed to, building the conveyance system all the way to Wayman. Then what happens to this project?
Well, I've heard that they are going to produce a study to the board as requested. And so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
So we have time. We don't need to rush this. I think it would be good to continue to work with Metropolitan and look at some of this stuff. At the end, you mentioned some things about this line buildup in our pipes and so on. We don't do any maintenance operations on that as part of our regular annual O&M maintenance of our system, or we assume that that's just being controlled through the chlorination.
We do flushing only as needed. Certain areas of our pipeline where we do know that we do get more biofouling than others where the chlorine residual will decrease. So we do schedule super chlorination and flushing, but we haven't gone through our entire distribution system to do any picking or additional flushing throughout the distribution system.
And those are a permit with the sewer department, 50,000 gallons a day. So one of the things that was brought up to the CEQA team and everyone at MWD was when you change water qualities, we all know what will move through there. We don't have yet a option for where to flush the water. That point.
On some of the longer service pipelines that have been in place, some probably have been now for 15, 20 years. And on those, might be worthwhile to start thinking about doing more than just chlorination or superchlorination. And I don't know, maybe some coupons would be appropriate to take to find out how much slime buildup we do have. Sometimes you think you might have more than not. Sometimes you don't anticipate any and you have some. Have we ever done any sampling or taken any coupons from the pipes and seen what condition they're in?
On the trunk line. We've looked at, done investigations of some of our, like the endpoints to understand the biofouling and some of the needs of those locations. We've done some work with LEDWP because they see a lot of biofouling on their side, but we have not done any investigation on the main.
So maybe just as part of our operation contract, we can have them do take some coupons. Somebody needs to selectively look at the pipelines and say, you know, these areas would be good to have some information on, and then those areas can be sampled and you can look at that, see what conditions we got. That might be something that worthwhile, just commentary, listening to the discussions you guys have. So effectively, this is something you're going to continue to investigate or not immediate rush right now to do anything except to continue to work with Metropol.
That's correct.
All right, so we'll move on, and the next item up is the monthly engineering report. So Mr. General Manager, we like to get out of here relatively soon, but I know that we keep cutting this agenda short. I don't want to cut off again the two presentations, so if we can restrict each to about 5 and no more than 10 minutes.
We will,
Get out of here.
we'll do our best, and what we'll try to do is speak to very crucial issues. As you mentioned, item C, the monthly engineering report. We do have our team of engineers led by Veronica Gobea, as well as Orlando Rodriguez and Kevin Collin. I would like, if you would not mind, if you could just touch on real quick the JMM expansion minimally, and then also Orlando. I know that a lot of work has been done in relation to the El Segundo connection. So
Maybe if I can interrupt you on that, I think we're gonna have more discussions on J and M, so that might be one that we don't need to.
we can do that
Yeah,
at the board meeting.
I know we will have more involvement. Next week. So let's talk about what's happening with the recycle pipeline, Palos Verdes extension. If you don't.
That'll
mind.
be Veronica Gobea.
Yes, I'll be super brief but informative now. You can please go to package page 283. That particular page is in reference to the schedule. Right now, we are still on the same schedule. However, there's been more rains and we are assessing what is the impact in regards to the schedule. So by next month, we'll have a much better idea of whether that schedule has been moved. In regards to pipeline construction, we are kind of caught up to all the RFIs, requests for information. You can please go to pages 285 through 187. Those are basically just construction of the progress of the pipeline as they go along the streets on High Grove, Pasillas, Tortugas, and Montana Avenue. And basically, I'm just trying to kind of show on the figure on the right-hand side, the location of where those photos are being taken to get you an idea of the geographic area. However, one of the items I really want to kind of talk about is on Vista Montana, which is on page 288. During not this rain event that happened this weekend, but the previous rain event where it was raining literally the whole week continuously. There was a slide on Vista Montana, and the picture that you can see on that page 288, you see on the right-hand side, right at the bottom, there's like a pipeline delineation. So that is the alignment where our recycled water pipeline is going to go through. Right now, the city of Torrance is waiting for a geotechnical report that is expected to arrive this week. And what we are doing is basically trying to set up the meeting for next week to go over what the report means and what can we do for construction and how long it's going to take for the city of Torrance to basically be able to identify the repair that I need to do for that hillside. Right now, that particular stretch of Montana, it's close to the public because the safety issues on that area. And it's still undetermined of what is the main cause of what created that, issue. However, one of the things that has been mentioned to us is that the repair could be like 6 months from now. Again, everything's still developing and the city is doing their best on trying to assess the situation. And what we are doing again is meeting with them and trying to identify, okay, what can we do around it and what does that mean to the construction? So that's basically for the pipeline. We'll be providing updates as we come along on the information and present it to you. In regards to pipeline, page 289, essentially that is just a summary of the PLA or the labor compliance. We are okay on the at-risk and the apprentices. The local is still, you know, kind of meeting, is trying to get to the goals that we are trying to, you know, to meet. And because these are from the December months, like all these reports, essentially, it only shows like a couple of subcontractors that are working for the project. And this month, I've seen the numbers already, and they are finally achieving or getting to achieve those goals. In regards to the pump station, we issued a notice to proceed, so date of February 6, 2024. We had our pre-construction meeting yesterday, the city of Torrance, as well as the entire team's construction outreach, construction manager, designer, contractor, were invited to that meeting. And we are right now in the process of scheduling our meeting for the unions, the PLA, basically, meeting for next week also. So as soon as we start getting to see the chapter drawing, I mean, the submittals for the days, we will be able to, you know, to determine when is that the contract is gonna be mobilized into the site. In the meantime, we don't want to be wasting time, so we start already reviewing the chapter drawing submittals, so that's in the process. In regards to budget, yeah, so the budget still remains as it was presented last time. And with that, I'll pass it on to Brenda. You're doing a presentation on.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh.
Ash Street project. I don't know if you guys, the committee would want to hear that or not, or
Which one?
the Nash Street project. That's the lateral that the developer CDC.
Oh.
We met with them,
Yes.
if you recall that.
Where are you?
Oh, sorry. I don't know if you
Go
want.
ahead.
Okay, if you could turn to, yeah, if you want to go to page 294 of the agenda packet. And I'll just quickly go, if you recall, this is the installation of a new 6-inch lateral. The city of El Segundo is extending Nash Street, just very close to our Edward C. Little facility. We'll be providing recycled water, but to highlight, this will be providing water for the headquarters and training facility for a small local football team in the Chargers. So about 66 acre-feet a year. Next slides, please. And I just really wanted to highlight, as we mentioned, the tie-in at El Segundo Boulevard that EJ alluded to. We did add this scope of work when we met with the developer. So in essence, if you look at the solid purple line, that's the lateral that they designed that will then connect to our existing lateral, which is the dashed line going north and south on El Segundo Boulevard. So just really quick scope of work there would just be to saw cut the concrete, excavate, chip the cement motor line, hot tap, and install a gate valve, and then backfill. So next slide. Here are just some pictures of that particular work. That work started on January 16th. At the pictures here at the top left, they progress chronologically, like from top left to top right. Then you go to bottom left, bottom right. You know, they began with saw cutting on that day. Then progressively, as each day kind of moved on, they excavated. Eventually, they did reach our pipeline there. We started chipping away at the cement motor coating on the exterior of the pipeline. Next slide, please. And then expose the steel underneath that cement motor, as you can see there on the top left. Began prepping the pipe, install the wrapper, and then at the bottom left there, what you'll see there is a nozzle that was installed or welded on into that pipeline along with the gate valve in red. It's a little bit hard to see, but and then eventually at bottom right there on January 28th, sorry. The hot tap that line. So the valve is there installed, it's closed. So they have backfilled, installed the riser can to the road, and I believe installed the permanent pavement already at that location. So the only thing missing there is the actual lateral coming from the other side to eventually connect there. Next slide. So these are the next steps for that particular project. They're very close. They're approximately, I would say, about 80 to 85% complete with this particular project. They are continuing to perform hydrostatic pressure testing along different sections of the pipe as they build it. They'll perform the test and then connect. They will be continuing to install service laterals meter boxes and so forth, airbags. Remaining things to do is also inspection by the Department of Public Health and also West Basin staff. And then once final approval is received, they will be installing all the service meters. We believe that they have about 1 to 2 months remaining of actual work, which is well before the deadline that they have to turn over the facility to the chargers, with the street being dedicated and all on July 1st of this year. So they're ahead of schedule, and I think we're pretty much set. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't know, I'll ask Veronica and Joel, are there any other items that you think are crucial to present on before we move on to operations? Okay, well, then that would bring us to item 6D, our monthly operations update. And I know that we have Uzi Daniel, Manager of Operations, as well as Susanna Lee, our Operations Supervisor, Jamie Malpete, our Water Quality Environmental Compliance Supervisor, and Frank Fuchs, our Operations Supervisor, to present. I don't know, Uzi, if you want to walk through any crucial items, perhaps Torrance Refinery.
Sure, would you like the 5-minute version for the presentation? Or it's discretion?
You can give us the 5 or 10 minute version. You think we got the good oversight without having each other.
Okay. Remember these days we're up here. On page 315 is where our board memo is, and we're happy to elaborate. We have all the staff here. I'll give you the quick highlights. For production side water quality, when there's pain at Hyperion, there's pain for us. The storms do cause a lot of havoc. Many people are aware that they had to open their screens up, all of them at the big beginning of February event. All of that sediment, trash, debris is sitting in their primary treatment. So we have seen turbidity, TSS up near 100. We are dealing with it, but we have to turn off our membranes often on barrier to try to save them and preserve them. So we're managing that, communicating with them. They've given us about a 1 week to 2 week time frame when they think they'll be able to recover. At Torrance, as EJ mentioned, Orlando
I
Live.
should interrupt you. What happened in Hyperion? Why are they, what happened this time?
So, and then, sure, and from my understanding on one discussion with an engineer there, the big event that we call the big upset was their screens, their bar screens got backed up and clogged, and they didn't open them or clear them, which caused an overflow in everything that occurred. So this time in the storm events, even though they're not combined technically sewer with storm drains, they get a lot of infiltration, and during these big events, they get overwhelmed. Well, their screens started to fill up with so much debris that they opened them, had the bypass, and that just allows all the raw water to come in, and they try to treat it. So that's what happened this time. I guess the good news is they didn't flood their site, damage their equipment per se, but it did get in all the basins of primary treatment, and they are struggling to keep up and recover.
But did they meet the waste discharge requirements under discharge?
Their permit limits, that I haven't checked recently, and I haven't asked, and I don't know. So I can tell you what we're getting on our influent, which is always a little different anyway. But we can check into that.
Just wondering if they have been meeting and there hasn't been any press on that. So they have been meeting on the waste discharge side.
Right.
They managed that.
Yeah, and the storm, I think sometimes there's a little forgiveness in the storms, but now that they publish, they regularly online on their website, they publish, right, Jamie, a lot of their results. That was kind of the mitigation, so people can see it, so we can look that up. But I think that's why maybe you don't hear as much press, because it's transparent and it's out there.
It takes a couple of weeks for them to upload the data. So we're a couple weeks behind.
As far as the Torrance incident, that was, as we heard today, related to a power blip, as we call it, any issue that could occur. But when it impacts our aged DCS system, as we saw, it brings down a lot of different things. We didn't have the right IO cards to replace everything, as you heard earlier. So it did take some time. There was some ingenuity, a lot of weekends, and I will say I appreciate a lot of the staff I had bronchitis. So Barkev, Susanna, and Jason, a lot of the team really stepped in to manage that. Veolia, we put in some bypass lines for some potable water, have been working with the refinery and worked really hard and got them reconnected this morning. A big planned effort with their operations. So that was a lot of work, but that we have restored their water. So we're flowing again and working on contingencies to contingencies. On the compliance side, real quick, the hearing tomorrow is the regional board. Jamie, Kevin, and I will be going down to the hearing. This Carson, our JMM brine permit, is actually not on consent calendar. It's on the contested. And that is because the board wants to hear more. Our insiders tell us it's probably related to pure water. They may not ask us, but they want their staff to answer some of those questions will come up. It's our understanding that some of the NGOs are concerned with brine when we go to DPR. And so this is an avenue for that, but we're prepared. We've prepared presentation. LA County SAN will be present if there's questions for them. And our brine permit should be passed by tomorrow for JMM. Another thing that's in your pack that we want to bring to your attention, and we're very thankful that this board supports sort of moving away from proprietary systems. We have a proprietary system, not in this building, but down at the treatment plant for fire suppression by Johnson Controls. They have purchased Simplex, Grinnell. They basically own, most of the companies now. It is the opposite of Emerson. We have trouble getting response from them. There's no competition to get them out. And now we've been working with our procurement for months. We're at a standstill. They won't sign our terms and conditions. They have riders. Our legal has not recommended that we re-sign any of the POs. The problem is when we're working with the fire department, we have a notice of correction because of some of the items on the fire panel. So we're working to get those corrected as we can, but we're looking at options. The fire department did recommend an expert, retiree in the field to kind of help us out, Gratis. And so we're working with that person, with engineering team ops, and going to meet even with the fire department and then bring to this board what those options are and hopefully put in a 1-for-1 panel replacement devices and be able to have, just like here, a competitive system where we go out to bid every 5 years for service contract. And that's where we're going to aim. And we'll bring you more information on that. And then finally, for distribution, I think there's, as we've heard from a lot of these projects now, a lot of inspections, a lot of things. When we connect those big pipes, the team has to coordinate with the regulators, meet them there, do cross connection, testing, all of that. So it's been a real busy time. People are still clamoring for recycled water. And I would say that I think this last month, we haven't had any DUIs hitting our air vacs. So good for that, but we will be bringing a ratification on one of the other items, one of the other leaks that we had to have an emergency repair. And that's going, I think, should be coming to the full board for ratification on that urgent emergency repair. And with that, if there.
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on. I don't believe there's any director's comments unless you have some comments.
I don't have any.
Okay, then this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.